Well, welcome to another edition of Mining Now, and we're live from Austin Powder's corporate headquarters in Cleveland, Ohio. My name is Roy Slack, and I'm your host today. And I have the pleasure of speaking with Kurt Oakes, and Kurt is the Director of Technical Services for North America for Austin Powder. And Kurt, great to be here today. We've been chatting before, reminiscing, but thanks for hosting us at your office here.
Well, Roy, thank you very much for the opportunity, and welcome to Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah. No, we drove through a little bit of snow. We had an interesting welcome from the weather. But this Mining Now series, this is the second, I believe, in the series. And the initial episode was with Cameron McKenzie and Alan Rumpf. And they talked about Paradigm. And for our audience, it's well worth a watch. But we're here today with Kurt. And first of all, Kurt, give us a little bit of background on your involvement. How did you get involved in the industry?
So I'm a degreed mining engineer, University of Missouri-Rolla, currently Missouri S&T. I've always had a passion for drill and blast. Spent the first 11 years of my career on the production side, working at various mine sites and aggregate operations, underground coal, industrial minerals. And throughout that process, I just found my passion lied with the drill and blast side of things. And it's been the best move where I could move and focus my enjoyment and professional career on that whole drill and blast side for both surface and underground. It truly is wonderful when you have an opportunity to pursue a career in some place that you enjoy, like you did in your working career with cementation. Yep. It's a total blessing. And when we have good mentors that are willing to raise us up and teach us, and then have a desire to understand and utilize new tools and technologies, because when you look at the developments in the commercial explosives industry over the past close to 40 years, it's incredible. Just going from
huge difference.
When you look at going from electric sequential timing boards, like is what I started with, transitioning into non-electrics, and then having the very fortunate benefit of being at the very initial stages, shooting programmable electronic detonators.
It's pretty cool.
And to have had that opportunity since the late 90s, like 99, when I first shot my first electronic shot. It's just incredible to see how technologies have made our industry that much safer, because I always view safety is always and always. That's one of the critical components of what we do in the mining industry, especially in the drill and blast and explosive side of things. And honestly, it's one of the things that I take a great deal of pride in with our generation, because you and I are both of a similar age group. Yeah,
old.
We're old. We're the old guys. But it's a fact. And what we've done in our generation to improve safety on the operations side of things, you just look at the safety statistics. It shows, and a lot of that is due to our mindsets, our understanding that it's important the most important thing is to be home at the end of the day with our families and our loved ones. But also in the end, a safer operation is a more profitable operation. And it's one of those things when you're on the commercial explosive side, it's our priority to work with our customers and our own crews to ensure that they're doing things and understand the right way to do things, and not be afraid to call time out and say, we can do this better. We need to step back, assess the situation, study it, and make sure that we get it right. Because the last thing I ever want to do is to have to call a wife or a mother or something of that sort.
So that, I was listening to that speech, and I'm thinking you should be in front of schools talking about mining. That was great. And your operating experience,
Yep.
and I find this in the service industry, your operating experience is so important to what you can do. But we'll get into that in a few minutes.
Let's talk about our Heavy Industry World Tour brought to you by Savinaw Equipment. Find, market, and sell surplus and used equipment. We are heading to events across North America and Australia and filming episodes on location. Email us at info@crownsman.com to be part of Crownsman's Heavy Industry World Tour. As heavy machinery specialists for mining, SMS Equipment knows performance, like the performance they achieve together in a partnership dedicated to the success of their mining customers. At SMS Equipment, they're more than machines from trusted brands. They're the people beside you today and every day, bringing industry-leading technology and expertise to your mining operation. Because the right partnership makes everything possible. SMS Equipment, partners in your possibilities. Discover what's possible at smsequipment.com. The mining industry is evolving. Efficiency and sustainability are more important than ever. Drawing on decades of expertise, Aderco's innovative fuel additive enables you to decarbonize your operations without sacrificing performance. Lower emissions, protect your engines, and save on fuel expenses, all with one simple solution. Choose Aderco, the smart choice for sustainable, profitable mining, because you can save money while making a positive impact. Visit aderco.com to learn more.
Austin Powder.
Yep.
Iconic company.
Yes.
Can you give us a little bit of background on Austin Powder for the audience? I know,
Yep.
but for the audience, a little bit about what the company does and who they are.
So Austin Powder was founded in 1833. We here in the state of Ohio. Cleveland has been its corporate offices from the beginning. We take a great deal of pride in the fact that we are American owned. I'm just going to say it right here.
Yep.
And as a veteran of the U.S. military, I take that very seriously, and I'm proud of that fact. We take pride in developing robust, dependable, reliable products that'll perform in all sorts of conditions. When you look from, we go through product testing from negative 40C to positive 40C just to make sure that they function in all those environments.
Because you're working everywhere too.
It's incredible when you think about our global footprint.
Yeah.
You know, Austin Powder's in excess of, I think the number's 30, 34, 36 countries around the world now.
Yeah.
And we've always had a strong presence in the United States. And then over the years, we've expanded through Latin America, South America. We've always had a strong presence in Czechoslovakia, where we have some major manufacturing plants for initiation systems and a lot of our bulk pumping and equipment and truck technology, like mobile manufacturing units. A lot of that technology comes out of our Europe group, as well as here in the States. And then we've been expanding into the South Pacific, as well as into Africa. So, and it's been a very strategic, organic growth, because as you well know, the last thing you want to do is you don't want to expand too fast, because you got to make sure you have in the explosive supply and manufacturing side of things, you need to make sure that you're basic in your components that we manufacture, so that we're not dependent upon too many external sources. Products like PETN, azide, ammonium nitrates, things like that.
So the services, I mean, Austin Powder is an explosive supplier,
Right.
but more than that, there's equipment you're talking about, then there's technical support. There's all these other things that go above and beyond just selling me some explosives.
Right. And that's one of the things that has always differentiated me, in my opinion, of Austin Powder throughout my years, is the fact, the way that Austin Powder works with their customers and approaches business. We want to do it the right way. We want to make sure that everybody's on the same page through proper training, a proper understanding of what the task at hand is, and how to get it done safely, efficiently, for the benefit of the customer. So that involves training, that involves actually working with the customer, like our tech reps. Our tech reps, our salespeople, our field blast crews, we're always working with the customer in order to get the best result for what they want to see, and we want to do it safely. We use technology like you had previously spoken with Cameron McKenzie and Alan Rumpf. Okay, one of our technological on the cutting edge is time has gone on with industry and the development of those technologies, software modeling and blast management packages such as our Paradigm system enable our tech reps and the customers and our blasters to do their job better. And Paradigm is a software package that you can incorporate it with other mine planning softwares like Deswick and Vulcan. You can incorporate they're very seamless in their transitions so that the files can share with each other, not just on blast timing and drill patterns, but geology, fly rock calculators, vibration calculators. You can incorporate joint structures of, it's just incredible for both surface and underground, different geology types. It's a marvelous tool. And by the proper use of those tools, we can provide value for the customer, and we can differentiate ourselves from others in the marketplace.
CIM is Canada's leading technical institute dedicated to the sustainability of our industry. Members enjoy professional growth opportunities through CIM libraries, publications, webinars, societies, and the job board. Experience the CIM community firsthand at the Conference of Metallurgists, August 19th to 22nd, ICARD, September 16th to 20th, and the CIM Health and Safety Conference, October 6th to 8th. Visit CIM.org for more information and join CIM today. Who is Savona Equipment? Savona Equipment Limited is a buyer and seller of new, used, and refurbished industrial equipment with a focus on mining and construction. They find, market, and sell surplus and used equipment. Does the equipment need work? They can refurbish. Is there something you can't find? They source those hard-to-find items. Selling equipment? They buy, consign, and broker equipment and asset packages. Need equipment moved? Savona Equipment manages logistics for worldwide delivery. Surface and underground ore processing, concentrating, and refining plants and equipment, power generation and electrical, pump, material handling, alluvial placer, gold mining, recycling, and much more. If you need to buy, sell, find, refurbish, or move equipment, you need Savona Equipment. Savona Equipment, more equipment every day. Visit them at savonaequipment.com. Did you know cementitious binders can be responsible for up to 70% of the total GHG footprint of mine backfilling processes? Now you can replace up to 50% of the binder in your mine backfill operations with Graybond, Graymond's new low-carbon cementitious binder. This lime-based alternative binder maintains a 40 to 70% lower GHG footprint compared to typical cement and can adapt to varying mine conditions without compromising performance. Learn more about Graybond at graybond.com.
I'm smiling because when you're talking about that, I remember as a young engineer and designing a blast pattern for a shaft sinking job, which was my background.
Yep.
And I would look at my blaster's handbook. I would design a pattern. We would ask how it went. And then if it didn't go well, we would redesign it until we finally got a pattern that worked. And we didn't look at any of it. There's so many things that have changed to make the process. And the other thing we talked about at the start was safety. We don't have a specific topic in the interview,
right? But
I think we're both going to find safety permeates through the whole discussion.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And you know, on that topic, and this is one of the things that I feel very fortunate to have the role that I've been asked to be a part of is the Director of Technical Services, is the fact that now that I'm an older guy and I've been very blessed to work all around the world in all sorts of environments, I can take that background and work with younger mining engineers and younger blasters and younger customers so that I can kind of relate what I've experienced in certain situations so that they can hopefully do their job better and learn from that. And as the old guy in the room, as I oftentimes am now, it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable to be able to transfer that little bit of knowledge to somebody else and then watch them soak it up. And then when they start asking questions, you can start building upon that so that they get a better understanding of it. And it's important. Yeah. It's important.
I think the building on the impressing on people how far we've come.
Yep.
Which means that we have the potential to go that much further.
Right.
I'm not saying that very well, but that's what I'm getting from your.
Well, just look, in explosives. Let's talk about the technologies with bulk emulsions, going from what we were initially started out back in the late 70s, early 80s, and when you would look at microballoon sensitized emulsions that came out as a 1.5 blasting agent, and then trying to get reliability built into those products. And then when you look at today's technologies with the newer surfactants, with chemical sensitization, gassing, and then the various control systems that we have in our pumping systems in order to adjust densities and gassing rates and viscosities and thicknesses and gas energy partitioning and shock energy partitioning. It's a whole new world, and this is where the technology has moved on the blasting agent and the explosive side of things. We mentioned earlier about initiation systems with going from pyrotechnics to programmable electronics. There's all sorts of things that we can do with our electronics that we can custom build a product to meet our customers' needs. Like if we're supplying for an industrial minerals customer that can't take copper, we can make an electronic detonator that, even though there's still copper components in it, but it has enough iron. We can put some iron in the leg wires and on the shell so that it gets picked up in the magnets and won't go into their end process to contaminate their finished product. And it's important that that's where it goes to understanding your customer's needs and how we as a manufacturer and how our tech reps and our sales guys can work with that customer and figure out different solutions that are outside the box. Like RFID, and with our electronics, we can go along and literally just touch the back of the clip, and it records the address and assigns the firing time of that detonator. And then through the blast box, whether it's a remote blast box or a hardwired blast box, if it's a central blasting system that goes underground or whatever, we have full confirmation and two-way communication with those products. So if anything goes offline, if something happens, we know about it before so we can address it. And that's where the technologies have just been incredible.
Yeah, and it was a few years ago. Well, there's a couple of things I keyed on there is that we're at a point now where things are measurable,
mm-hmm.
right? We used to experiment and figure out what worked and what didn't. But the other thing that I clued into, and during your conversation you alluded to it, now you can begin. So I'll back up. When you were doing mine planning,
mm-hmm.
you never really worried about explosives.
Right.
It was, here's a stope dimensions. What's the mining method? What's the powder factor? Sometimes you'd approach a supplier about powder factor. Today, you can talk about fragmentation. You can talk about grade and the ability to control some of these things can influence your mining method, can influence your recovery rates.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of things you can do now that in the old days it was just you want to break rock.
Right.
Now you can do a lot more.
And you hit the nail on the head. For instance, going back into paradigm, we can run Coos-Ram curves to get fragmentation profiles, whether it's on a historic site that we've already been working at for a long time, or if it's a greenfield site.
Yeah.
We can incorporate that geotechnical data, the UCSs, incorporate that, build that into the model, and we can get a really good understanding of what that fragmentation curve is going to look like. And that'll give, that way we can adjust the finished product, the fragmentation, for what the primary crusher, what the secondary crusher, find the bottlenecks in their crushing circuits, see if there's an issue with their tertiary and their recirculating loads, or going as far as doing some milling efficiency studies in order to get the proper feed going into their rod mills or whatever type of milling circuit they have, rod mills, ball mills, sag mills, whatever that may be. It's just wonderful to have these tools in our toolbox and to be able to use them when an opportunity does come up.
We talk a lot. We don't have this. In fact, I should just do a Letterman intro because we're having such a great conversation. But we don't have this on the list either. But from an environmental standpoint, I'm gonna tell you something. You tell me if it makes sense, because fragmentation. So let me back up.
Yep.
The number one energy usage in mining is, you know where I'm going with this,
Yep.
is crushing. And if you can reduce the crushing requirements through fragmentation, through planned blasting to blast to a certain size, you can reduce the energy requirement pretty significantly in an operating mine.
Correct.
So if immediately you don't associate with explosives with environmental stewardship, you can reduce your carbon footprint.
Correct. And you see that significantly, say up on the Minnesota Iron Range, where the big taconite mines, they
very hard
grinding, mill intensive, and that's the last bastion in North America of a 16.5-inch blast hole.
Yeah.
And the reason they do that is in order to get the VOD of the emulsion up high enough to just break the rock,
yeah,
to get it to a point of being able to muck it, load it, crush it, and then get it in the milling circuit. And it's not just about the finished product size that's coming out of the muck pile. It's about generating the microfractures that's in each one of those fragments to improve that grindability of that taconite. And then you can also take these fragmentation curves the totally other direction, which you see more so as a focus in aggregate operations, especially limestones, where the aggregate operation is making too many fines.
Okay.
You're shooting it too hard. So through the use of technologies, whether it's it's more. An electronic detonator is not a silver bullet. You got to know how to use it properly. And there's other things that come into play as far as burden and spacing, pattern relationships, angled holes, types of products you're using, the densities, you name it. There's all sorts of things that come into play there. The geology is a huge one. Play into the joint structures, your major and minor joint sets, your dipping, anything like that. But when we can come out and improve an individual's operation by reducing the amount of fines they're losing in their crushing and screening circuits at an aggregate company. You just look at the average selling price of what a product may be someplace across the United States or Canada or wherever. And if you can reduce that and bring it down to a point of reasonability, that's just that much more. Number one, that's much more reserves that they're able to get out of.
That's a win-win-win.
It's a win-win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about the customer and us as a company, but that's also a win for the environment and society, because we're actually using that product to a benefit, and it's not having to go into a waste pile or an overburden pile or something of that sort.
Yeah.
So when we can use our skills based upon our experiences and the technologies that we have, those are the things that raise the bar. And when we get a chance to raise the bar, and I'm not just saying for the customer, but I'm saying for the industry and for our society, that's when we know we're doing the right thing. And people, we need to do a better job of communicating that to people.
It's a challenge in our industry.
Oh my gosh, yes.
To be understood.
Yes, and when I go to when I have an opportunity to be a part of a public hearing for a mining operation or a new permit or something of that sort, it's important that we as an industry talk about that, because for what the press jumps on the negative, and we're all held to the common denominator of something going wrong. Well, that's what makes it so important that we do things right. We do the right thing all the time. And so we minimize that impact, and we minimize that negative impression that many in society have on what we do, because we've not done a very good job of educating.
I think my opinion is that the public likes minerals.
Yep.
Not as fond of mining.
Correct.
Of course, the two are
correct
are completely intertwined. But I want to talk about. I saw this note here: blasters with passion.
Yep.
And we know that our industry is looking at shortages in personnel, in attracting people to our industry, and my own experience being in the service side of the industry is sometimes we're even more challenged than the mining companies.
Yep.
But Austin Powder is doing some really interesting things here. So let's talk about attracting and developing talent.
So we have good relationships with the various universities across the U.S. for attracting good talent for young professionals that want to come into our side of the business. We try to maintain some very good relationships with the high schools and the trade schools in the areas in which we work as far as a recruiting opportunity.
Just to let them know the opportunities are there.
Right.
Sometimes they don't even know.
They don't even know. Yeah. And, a lot of people, to do what we do, you don't need a degree. You need that passion. I look at, so as ex-military, when I was an enlisted, believe it or not, the ones I respected the most were the warrant officers. They were the ones that came up School of Hard Knocks. They were the ones that went through the rough stuff. And yet they were still smart enough to learn and climb the ladder within the service and get recognized for that. And that's where I look at it. Those are the guys that I like to lean towards throughout my career. It doesn't matter to me where you got your sheepskin from, but it does matter to me what you can bring to the table especially in a situation that isn't what you may have planned. And that background and that knowledge in somebody with a cool head under pressure is the one that I want to go to. And it's also what I want to aspire to. And those passions of people are what differentiate people. And I feel that truly within Austin Powder has always valued that side. It takes a whole mix to make it all work. But it also takes the right mindset so that people can communicate and, more importantly, trust. Because once you have that trust aspect built into a relationship, it's a win, and it's going to be a prolonged relationship.
I was going to say that, this whole idea of internal trust, because as a supplier, as a service provider, you are a relationship-based company, and relationships are based on trust. So that, anyway, I'm pontificating or whatever the right word is, based on what you said, but I can see that how important it is internally, so that you can build those relationships externally.
Right. And those relationships stay around, even to the point many of us say when the time comes for me to hang it up, I want those relationships to stay. And it's good for all of us to have that. It's very important to ensure that we don't compromise those relationships.
I'm an underground hard rock guy.
Yep.
But as I've progressed in the industry, I've seen the importance of the aggregate sector, both in terms of what it supplies to society, but also in size. And you mentioned it a bit, and I know your company's very involved with aggregates.
So, yeah, and Austin has always had a very strong focus on the aggregate industry, on the aggregate operations, especially in the eastern U.S. And it's not just limestones; it's various types. Whether you're in the granites of New England or the hard sandstones in central PA, the limestones, all the granites in Missouri, we've always had a very strong relationship with those customers, and it's been a backbone. But people don't realize, unless you're about our age, you don't realize the amount of impact that coal had in this portion of the country, and the amount of coal mining that was taking place. You may think about Pennsylvania and West Virginia and East Kentucky and Western Virginia, over in that neck of the woods, but you don't realize how much coal came out of this region just south of the Cleveland area.
Yeah.
And that too is a critical part, and was a critical part of our initial building up of the company.
Yeah.
And then when you go into southern Indiana and southern Illinois and West Kentucky, Austin Powder always had a strong focus and presence in those markets. And when you go into, when you look at our underground hard rock experience, we have the fortunate pleasure of working with the largest lead and zinc producers in the United States, whether they're in central and east Tennessee or whether they're in south central Missouri. And then when it comes to industrial minerals, we work with the largest underground industrial mineral limestone producer in the world. And it may just be North America. I'm sorry. I need to get clarification about that, but they're a food grade industrial mineral limestone producer that we have had a very long relationship with, because there's a significant level of trust, and they trust our technologies, they trust our people, they trust our support, and they trust what we bring to the table, and we treasure those relationships. But what's also interesting is when you look at our global footprint, our global footprint, especially in Latin America and in Europe, a lot of that has been built upon precious metals, gold, silver. A lot of that has also been built upon construction and urban mining projects. I can remember going back into the 90s, the late 90s, middle and late 90s, when the initial work for the Panama Canal began. And they were widening it so that they could get bigger ships through the canal. And as part of that, it wasn't just widening, they had to increase the size of the locks. And when you look at
So some very precise blasting going on there.
Correct, because when you look at the penstocks that are required to move the water from an upper chamber into a lower chamber to raise the lower chamber up so that the boat can lock through, it's incredible the amount of infrastructure that goes into a lock and dam project.
Yeah.
And as a kid that grew up on the Mississippi River in St. Louis and seeing how barge traffic and river traffic, it's just incredible when you think about the size and scale of what you see on the canal.
Yeah.
And Austin has been part of that Panama Canal project from the beginning. And it's one of those things that they trust us, we trust them, and as a result of that, it's a long-standing relationship that is valued on both sides.
Well, a project like that, the consequences of a mistake are huge.
Yes.
Right. You've got the infrastructure. So I've been to Panama before. I haven't seen the Panama Canal, but I live right beside the Welland Canal.
Yep.
And when you see those ships go through and the size of them, at a distance they look big, but from 50 feet away, they're enormous. But the whole concept there of widening it so dredging is pretty safe.
Yep.
But actually, cutting the wall in an area that's heavily developed, and I know a little bit about how locks work, and the whole system there with the penstocks, with the structure that holds the locks, it has to be expanded. Anyway, I'm getting into the point is that you've got to be able to do it right, or you get into big problems.
And it's very intimate and detail oriented.
Yeah.
And it's not one of those things you can just draw up on the back of a napkin one night.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that it takes a team on both sides that understand what the end goal is, because like you said, there's loads of infrastructure, not just. You're not just
all
worried about
along
rebar and concrete. You're worried about electrical systems, water systems, pumping lines, you name it.
Yeah.
And then when you look at the population density along a lot of these canals, with the neighbors, you can't upset them. You want to keep their quality of life in a good place as well. And because if something were to go wrong, there a neighbor situation is, I like to use the term license to operate.
Yeah.
That's a license to operate issue. Yeah. It's our social license to operate.
That's community. Yeah.
Correct. And we want to make sure that we do the right thing. And with the use of these newer products that we can work with, not just initiation systems, but bulk emulsions and modeling technologies, and even some of our newer package products, which are detonator sensitive emulsions that are custom built to meet the needs of what the project requires. We can incorporate that knowledge we can incorporate their use with our knowledge and background to be successful at it.
I thought about the Panama project, and if I'm the client or the customer, I'm not that worried about explosives, right? No matter which supplier I get, I'm going to get the right explosives.
Yep.
And I don't know but it's probably not the biggest project you've done in terms of dollar volume, but it's a very high profile project and a very technically oriented project. So Austin Powder was brought in not necessarily for the explosives, but for the technical capabilities that the company has.
And both those technical capabilities and the security of the supply of those products to ensure that throughout the life of that project, the products that project are going to require are always there reliably, so that
very schedule sensitive.
There's not a delay in the schedules.
Yeah.
And part of that also is where the quality control and the quality of assurance come into play in our manufacturing process. That honestly has been one of the things that I've been extremely pleased about since I've come on board with Austin, is our measures and attention to detail with our quality control in ensuring that we have traceability of the components and the individual ingredients that go into our products, to know that they're checked, they're double checked. We know that we have, say, in our delay elements of our traditional pyrotechnic detonators, we know that our delay elements in the Schaeffler elements are being compacted to the right pressures and gradations of the individual delay element compound, to make sure that gradation of that product is fine enough and compact enough to ensure a consistent and repeatable burning rate to minimize the amount of cap scatter that you have with a traditional pyrotechnic delay element. Just the fact that we utilize a Schaeffler element versus a rolled stubby type element goes a long way in that differentiation of accuracy, if that's the type of initiation system you want to use. Yeah, it still will never have the accuracy of a programmable electronic, which is 0.01%.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at non-electrics and you need to keep it simple,
yeah,
or if you're not trained or you don't even need to use the electronics, our non-electrics differentiate themselves from other manufacturers that are out there. And when you have a product that's reliable, that is robust, can function at all sorts of temperature spectrums, and then it has accuracy on top of it, that's the win. And that's what we want to supply.
As we discuss, I think about different things in our industry now. This isn't on the list, by the way. I don't know if I've covered anything, but we have so much data now, and everything is measurable. And if you have a supply company that has the technology to make use of that data, then you've got that added value. We have so much data now that we're just beginning to figure out how to use it. But that's where you guys are with. So there's a product that has to be good, but beyond that, how do you add that value?
So that's a really interesting question, and it's a good question, because as with computing systems and in analytical systems, we have more of an opportunity to analyze that data, and we can draw from customers' production data and performance numbers. We can draw from our own performance numbers, whether it's through seismic retention in doing site-specific seismic regressions to improve vibration numbers in a neighbor. If we know that we're being tasked with a project and we know where the nearest structure is, and we have an idea of the geology, and we can come up with a timing routine in order to meet their needs to stay under the vibration limits that are set forth from either the state or the municipality or the city or whatever has been imposed on the regulatory authority. With the use, we have a couple of systems where we can gather that data and utilize it to be successful in meeting those needs and working on key performance indicators that our customers may be looking at. We talked earlier about fines. A lot of aggregate companies are wanting to keep track of their fines. So we track it for them, and then through our business review meetings that we have with our customers, or some people may refer to it as a blast optimization meeting.
Continuous improvement.
It's exactly. CI. We can keep track of that, keep everybody on task, and it's not always about talking about the wins when we're having those discussions.
Yeah.
It's about talking about both the easy conversations and the hard conversations.
Yeah. What the challenges are, what's not working.
So that you can, to steal a line from Jimmy Buffett, to stay within the navigational beacons. And
I thought you were going to talk about Warren Buffett. wrong Buffett.
You kind of have an idea what side I'm coming from.
Jimmy Buffett was a billionaire too.
Yes,
so
he was.
They're both doing something right.
But it's important to have those hard conversations to talk about the opportunities for improvement, and that's where oftentimes the trust will come in, and that's where trust is built upon to work through those hard things.
When I think back, originally, as a customer, I would talk to an explosive supply company about powder factor. That's it. That's all.
Yep.
And cost.
Yep.
Right. Those were the two things. But I'm listening. You're talking about efficiency and cost, which is powder factor, but talking about fragmentation, vibration, which is in underground. We never used to worry about that a lot in the old days, but it's a big deal in surface operations, and it's also a big deal in underground now, where we've come to learn about stope failures.
Correct.
So, in all these things, how vibration impacts the community and the environment. There's some mines have tailings dams.
Mm-hmm.
You better be very careful around
Correct.
those. So there's all these things, and now that you have the data, you can help clients with those
Correct.
things, help customers with them.
And it's not just about vibration amplitudes or peak particle velocities. It's that dual relationship of amplitudes with the associated frequency of the waveform.
Frequency is
And then when you look at the duration of the shot, and depending upon your geology, you may have a situation where you develop what's referred to as a Rayleigh wave or a trailing wave, which is energy that's built up in the ground that takes a longer period of time for it to dissipate. However, that Rayleigh wave, even though it doesn't have much amplitude to it, much peak particle velocity, it's of a low frequency, and that low frequency rolls for an extended period of time. And depending upon your geology, if you're in saturated soils with a lot of overburden, those Rayleigh waves can really affect the neighbors. So through the use,
maybe even harmonics there.
Exactly.
You don't know for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even though the Tacoma Narrows Bridge wasn't a blasting event, but that shows you the impact that harmonics can have.
Just the right amount of vibration,
things.
or the wrong amount.
The wrong amount at the right time.
Yeah.
But and through the use of seismic analysis in modeling softwares like we can do within Paradigm, as well as using other systems and the use of technologies like there's a couple of systems out there where you can utilize georeferenced UAVs, drones,
Okay.
to tie in, create a three-dimensional model of your blast site. We can go out and do a whole mine or a quarry with it. And then each time we lay out a blast pattern, we can see the volume and quantity that's coming out, so it helps us with our sequencing. It also will, based upon that, if we know what our sequencing is, we can adjust the vibration impacts going, if there's a nearby residence here or over here, we can optimize the pit layout and the shot sequencing and the direction that we tend to send the vibrations towards. On top of that, through the use of blast timing modeling, we can also see what the frequency output is going to be on that particular blast based upon adjusting our milliseconds per foot of burden and milliseconds per foot of spacing. And we can adjust that and massage that so we can get a frequency shift. And oftentimes, if we can get that frequency shift from the low frequencies we were talking about with the Rayleigh wave, where we're talking about, say, 2 to 8 hertz, which is what the neighbors feel, if we can get that frequency shift up into the 20s and low 30s, or even to the 40s or 60s, that too is another win, because by getting that frequency shift, we're less of a perception to that structure because the frequency's high enough that the structure doesn't have time to respond. If it's a low frequency, it's kind of like that old adage of a cork on top of the water. It just rolls on top of the waves. Whereas, and that's because it's rolling with that low frequency of the waveform. If you're in a say a battleship or an aircraft carrier that has the right amount of draft, it can cut through those waves because those waves are in essence at a higher frequency relative to the ship, and the ship doesn't respond. It just cuts right through it. And a house is very similar to that. If we can get our frequencies higher, then it doesn't give time for that structure to respond, whether it's a house, whether it's a corporate building, whether it's whatever it is. It's a win.
And the monitoring also allows you to validate that you've met the legislated requirements. Right?
Correct. The regulatory requirements, because the commercial explosive, do you realize this, Roy, that the commercial explosives industry is the most regulated commercial entity within U.S. commerce?
I didn't know that, but it doesn't surprise me either.
And it should be.
People think about explosives. I mean, they're dangerous, right?
Right.
If not used the right way.
Right. And used to, again, we've been around long enough, but following the Murrah building in Oklahoma City, there were a lot of changes that took place following that tragic incident. And then following 9/11, it ratcheted up again following that. And yes, these are all things that have been good and needed, but they've been huge changes, like tidal shifts in how we as the commercial explosive industry have addressed our processes to ensure that, not that in the United States, our ATF, with our Mine Safety and Health Administration, with the various state regulatory agencies, with the Federal Highway Works and Safety Administration, with PHMSA talking about pipeline safety for underground pipelines and what the vibration levels are for those things. It's really changed the way that customers and contractors look at projects in mining operations, but it also changes the way that we can do our work. And that's one of the things that has really driven the DOT regulations, have really driven the the development of chemically sensitized emulsions, gassed emulsions that we're utilizing more and more and more today, because as that product's going down the road, it's only an oxidizer. It doesn't become a blasting agent until it goes into the blast hole.
Yeah.
So it's a very safe and stable product in transport. Now, granted, ammonium nitrate prill, it too is just an oxidizer. It's just a 5-1 going down the road.
Yeah.
But once you mix the appropriate portion of fuel oil with it as it's going through the augers on the truck into the blast hole, that's when it becomes a blasting agent. It changes
completely.
because
And as a customer, I'm really looking to my explosive supplier to deal with a lot of this, because you guys are the experts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for a lot of customers to keep up with what's happening, but you have to.
we have to.
Yeah.
And we feel that we're doing it right, especially when we have a passion to do it right.
Yeah.
And we want to do it right the first time. So,
I would agree. You, you don't want to, after 4 or 5 mishaps, say we got it right now. So
right. We don't want
you got
to.
to get it right the first time.
Hickey bobs in this game are not a good thing.
Yeah.
And
there's a marketing slogan for you. We get it right the first time. Right?
we do our best.
Yeah.
But the key is, even though you may get it right, there's opportunities for improvement going down the road.
Yeah.
So you can't sit on your haunches.
Yeah.
You got to be aware. You gotta be seeing what's going on around you so you can keep up and take the lead.
So Kurt, I can't resist this, but this has been an explosive episode of Mining Now. I had to get a granddad joke in there. They may cut that out. But for yourself, any final words? How do you want to sum up for our audience?
That's an interesting one. First, again, I want to thank you guys for taking time out and affording us the opportunity to have this conversation. And I very much enjoy having these opportunities to talk about something that has been such an intimate part of my life, and that is, I feel that all of us in this game, in the mining industry, provide as a benefit to society. And it's when you think about how technologies has evolved, as we've spent a lot of time talking today, and to think about professionals that also have a similar mindset with doing things the right way and working with the customer and figuring out different ways to skin the cat, and to work for a company and be a part of, more importantly, be a part of the family and the team with Austin Powder. It's a blessing and a fortunate opportunity to work with an organization that has that mindset, that values people, it values relationships, it values research and development dollars in order that we can do things better and create a win-win for everybody involved. Like we've spent a lot of time today talking about neighbors and the society side of things. Create a win for society, create a win for the customer, and create a long-lasting relationship for ourselves, Austin Powder Company. And I've had the opportunity to work with many of our with some of our people on a global basis. And that's a common thread amongst all of us.
Yeah.
It's interesting when you come into the Cleveland office here, you may see there we have a sign in one of our welcoming hallways, and it says Austin Powder, one family. And then when you look behind that, it's just a series of names, first names.
Oh, okay.
And all those first names represent first names of everybody within the company. And so whether your name is Joao or Miguel or David or Roy or Tom or whatever it is, Andre, it's like no matter how many are in there in the company, their name is up there that many times, so that everybody's represented.
Okay, I see what you mean.
And so that's where the whole family aspect comes into play.
Yeah.
And we value that. It's incredible with John Rathbun, our president. The man is a walking dictionary of people. He just knows everybody within the company because he values that.
Yeah.
He recognizes the benefit that they bring to the table. And to work with an organization, be a part of that, is just a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I treasure this opportunity. And I just want to make sure that we can continue delivering that value for our customers and doing things the right way.
Well, Kurt, first of all, thanks so much for hosting us today in your corporate office. And you talked a bit about passion.
Yep.
And we heard the passion today in your talks. We really appreciate your passion, not just for Austin Powder, but for the industry. We've been filming Mining Now live from Austin Powder's corporate office, their head office in Cleveland, Ohio. And I've been joined with Kurt Oakes. Kurt, thank you for joining us. And thank you to our audience for another episode of Mining Now.